So today I'm talking to one of our exciting QUT entrepreneurial alumni, and she's very entrepreneurial, and this is a conversation that I'm looking forward to with Melita Smith. We know at QUT Entrepreneurship, it's all about how do we develop that entrepreneurial action with our students. And as a former student, Melita has a very interesting story to tell. With the founding of an ag tech firm, Ceres Tag. So Melita, tell us a little bit about what you studied at QUT, because it wasn't in agriculture, was it?
No, so my QUT experience is in a postgraduate capacity, and I did my Masters of Education through QUT, and I did that remotely. So it was fantastic, and I really enjoyed the engagement through QUT. It was one of my first experiences of online lectures, and I had young children in primary school at the time, and my husband was traveling overseas, and to be able to attend a lecture and do dinner and type in questions and see other people's questions and responses, and I just found it, for me, a fantastic way of learning. And I think our current situation with COVID has sent a lot of people into that type of remote learning mode. And some people will struggle with it, but for me at that point in my life, I loved it. And it opened up opportunities in the way I did my teaching, because I was a teacher at the time as well, that there's a lot of ways to pass knowledge around, and there's a lot of ways to do the learning and life. And that has actually spilled over into Ceres Tag, the way we operate and the way we see our offering to our customers as well.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Ceres Tag and what it actually is as an ag tech firm.
So Ceres Tag is actually a platform. We call it Ceres Tag because when we started, it was just, we had the idea of more of a GPS identification tag. But then we realized the automation of data was actually quite lacking in ag tech. Oh, sorry, not in ag tech, but in livestock tech. So if you look at agronomy, the technology and the precision agriculture that is around some of those amazing tractors and harvesters, the satellite abilities that have improved productivity in that field of agriculture just hadn't transferred across into livestock, because livestock's more difficult. It has more than one owner, and it doesn't stay still, and it doesn't stay the same. So it starts off very small, and there are lots of forks in the road for livestock production, whether it is for processing and consumption, whether it is for breeding and genetics. So that's where the platform came into it. And in Australia, we have a national identification scheme which takes care of biosecurity and provenance. That is also a similar scheme is also in New Zealand and Paraguay and several other countries around the world, but it's not everywhere. So we then developed the understanding, or we always knew, but we formalized the understanding that we would need to fit into that regulatory framework to make this a really adoptable and supply chain useful tool. So this is not just for farmers, this is for the entire red meat supply chain. And you'll hear people talk about blockchain. Blockchain really takes care of the product from processor to plate, but what took care of the provenance from paddock to processor is much more manual. So Ceres Tag, the platform, was developed to help the data flow and automate that, as well as animal welfare and security and provenance, so that you know as a consumer where and how that product has been cared for.
So what sort of information is being captured in the sensors on the animal?
So the sensor and the ear tag, so I have one here if you'd like to see.
Okay, yeah.
If I can through the, so that's what they look like.
Yeah.
And this is a solar panel on the front.
Yeah.
So the Ceres Tag collects GPS data. So we have an applicator.
Mm-hmm.
And I get lost in the background here. So the applicator turns the tag on. That tag has GPS capability, accelerometers, and there's a temperature sensor, which is not for the animal temperature, but for ambient temperature. And that way we can tell if there is a behavior change. Is that related to the ambient temperature, or is there something else going on for that animal? So those are the main parts of it also has Bluetooth, so the Bluetooth enables this tag to be updatable with new and algorithms and regionally specific algorithms as our product develops. And it also is the world's first direct to satellite sensor for livestock.
Okay, so you don't have to change the battery. You
don't have to change the battery. That's the solar panel takes care of that. Yes.
Yep. And you don't have to go out and recapture the animal and, update the technology that's in there.
No, that's right. So that's what the Bluetooth is for. So they will have to come into the yards, but you don't have to touch that tag again. So the benefit of that, to be, as I mentioned before, to be covered by the regulation, you can't tamper with the tag. You need to put the battery in. You can't take it out. You can't take it off the animal. So we also have a retention system that means that you have to damage the ear badly to get that tag off. I mean, nothing is impossible, but it's been designed to not just fall out.
Yeah.
To not degrade over time.
And clearly in Australia, incredibly tough conditions and some big animals that roam over large distances. It's got to be an incredibly robust piece of technology there.
That's right. So a lot of effort and time has gone into the materials used to wrap all those awesome electronics in. Yeah. So it's important that it can handle the different environments. It needs to protect the electronics. It also needs to protect the animal. So that careful retention system is also about not damaging the animal. It's about making it a quick and easy process to put the tag on.
Okay. Yep. So you came off the farm. You grew up in the country? Yeah?
Yes, so my parents are still on farm. We're up there very regularly. We would, in fact, during COVID, while universities have been closed, two of my daughters have been up there helping out on farm. Yeah. And absolutely, still incredibly involved. And that's, I think, one of the secrets to Ceres Tag for us is that we constantly have front and center who our customers are. Yeah. So I mentioned supply chain because it's not just farmer, but farmer's where it starts.
Yeah.
And that data packet that on-farm experience creates can then travel through that supply chain onto the next person and the next person who owns, or the next company who owns those animals. And the benefits can be far reaching. So we don't become a product that only does one job.
Yeah. So it's quite a step between primary teaching and entrepreneur. So clearly you have an understanding of the situation of farmers and the issues that they face. But what else led you and David to this opportunity?
I think we probably were always entrepreneurial, but we did what we needed to do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And also we are of the generation, I suppose, where leaving school, leaving home and getting a job was very much the focus. We came out of the end of the 80s and the 90s recessions, and being able to stay home on farm wasn't an option for me. And David became an engineer, and we just went where the work was, and we both of us chose careers and industries that are kind of guaranteed work.
Yeah.
And I loved teaching. I really loved teaching. And I think it's not such a stretch because there are parameters, curriculum, syllabus documents, but how you impart that knowledge has to be end user specific.
Yeah.
The same as what we're developing in ag tech. If you only have one solution or one method of helping people come to that solution, then that's potentially not the most efficient or effective way to teach.
Yeah.
But I am really enjoying, and we're both really enjoying working together on something that is going to has some social benefit, and is also our idea that through our collaborators we're bringing to fruition.
Yeah.
So,
and do you think, well, we have a particular professor of entrepreneurship, Per Davidson, and he talks about the external enablers of entrepreneurship. So which, is a lot about some ideas fit certain times. So do you think the time is right to be developing technology in the area of livestock, around farming, around, managing assets, which is essentially what you're doing here?
I think timing, absolutely. We would say timing is everything. So we, personally as well as environmentally. So for us personally, it was the right time. So I was relief work. I wasn't locked into any contracts at the time. David's contract with his corporate work had come to an end, and we decided that we really wanted to do something together. We were the right age. We had put some money aside to be able to make this leap from having that cash flow of jobs. So we went all in.
Yeah.
We didn't do this as a side hustle. We decided this was the one. So personally, we had to be in the right time. And that's different for everyone, I think. But for us, that was the right time. And then externally to that, the rise in consumer concern for what they were consuming. So if I go to the shop, I want to know what I'm buying. The rise of the farmers market, people want to have that relationship with where their produce is coming from. And people are also, we are in a data society. So it's come up in conversation for us. There was a time when you built relationships and then you found out the data about someone or something. So you had a relationship with your, especially in agriculture, but in other industries as well. So the guy at the shop at the produce shop that you bought from, or your retailer, you had a relationship with that person, and then you trusted that business relationship. Whereas now I think it's much more, show me the data. So I see people all the time, show me the reviews. What are the Google reviews or the whatever, before I make a decision to trust this, this business and I think data is the way a lot of people make decisions, and we want to have trustworthy and transparent data. So timing wise, I think that's part of it. I think people want to feel connected, but how to do that? And data seems to be a way, being able to share that knowledge is a way of building relationship as well. Yeah. And plus IoT and battery technology, and we are the world's first direct to satellite because it had never been tried before off an animal. There's a lot of complexity around being able to send that signal on a living being. Mm-hmm. So it's not as difficult off a water pump or a soil sensor or something else. You put it in one place and you can put a big battery beside it and it can send a signal. But for us, everything had to be miniaturized down.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. So where did you find the resources to help you do all that work?
So we had the idea. So we went through a few different ideas of how data capture, so through drones or all sorts of different ideas. And we really decided that it had to be on animal, and to be practical and to be scalable, it needed to be an ear tag. So then we went to Meat and Livestock Australia, and we went to AgForce and those industry groups to see what they thought of our idea, thought if it was something worth pursuing. Yeah. We believed it was, but industry stakeholders assist. You know, without endorsing us particularly, we can use their experience and their knowledge of, is this a gap in the market that you identify, or is it something that was just our own idea?
Yeah.
So we went to them and they said, yes, look, it's a great idea. Keep fleshing out what you think that business might look like and how that could help. And then we did our own research, and we also, talking with others, we were given a paper that was written by some gentlemen at CSIRO, and we rang them and said, whatever happened to this project? It was nowhere near the product and the platform that we've built now, but it was the beginnings of something, and they had run out of funding, and it had been a great project that was just great R&D, but had never gone the next step.
Yeah.
Then it took a lot of negotiation to get agreements in place around MLA has the donor company, which is some federal funding that they administer. So we applied, and we asked CSIRO if they'd be interested in being partners, our development partners. And yeah, a lot of toing and froing and paperwork and vision, I guess, from us, and tenacity not to give in, that we then managed to get those two agreements that aligned, so that we had funding and we had a development partner. And it has been a fantastic opportunity. We then were able to get some funding through Advanced Queensland and a relationship with JCU up in Townsville. So, and all of those agreements all aligned so that they could all support each other. So it was fantastic. And we were the corporate, or the commercial arm, not the corporate arm, the commercial part of those partnerships. Yes. So the funding, the development, and then we were the go-to-market. So, and then over time, so we've continually looked for funding opportunities through grants, and often through those grants come partnerships with people who can help to develop that, to continue to develop the idea. But a business plan is always important, because most of that funding is based on a sound business model.
Yes.
So we had to be able to have all of that in place. Otherwise, awesome R&D sits as R&D and never becomes an adopted and usable and scalable product.
Yeah. And what about working with your customers? So I'm thinking here about farmers. I know you trialled the tag with 100 animals, and then you did a large trial with 500 animals. What's been the customer acceptance of the tag?
So one of the really important things that we have, it's part of our agreement, but we had planned to do it anyway. Part of our agreement with MLA is to have a we call it a producer panel, but it's an advisory panel on the technology. So that group of farmers are from all the different farming sectors. So people say, who's your, to explain a farmer to me or describe a farmer to me. Well, it depends. So we've got a producer panel that has a vertically integrated system. So they're from calving right through to processing.
Yeah.
And into market. We have large scale northern grazing up in the territory and Alice Springs. We have we have dairy farms, and we have the much more intensive grazing of the southern part of Australia, and then we have the feedlots. So we try to have a cross section of people. Yeah. And they help us keep it real. So as well as our own connection. We're up to 5 staff now, and all of us have a connection to the land still. So that helps keep it real. Yeah. As well. But that producer panel is really important. And if anyone's developing any kind of product, software or manufactured product, I think really keeping your consumer in mind, and not just in mind, but actually talking with them. And we talked with them for a long time, even before we'd manufactured a prototype. Yeah. And we talked to them about pricing. We talked to them about, so we're doing something quite different. Our platform is API accessible. So we're not making customer facing software, because there's a lot of farm management software that already exists, and some bigger properties like bespoke software that they've developed themselves. But our tag is open to all the data, to their tags, their purchase tags from us, they can access. Yeah. So we're doing something quite different. So we need to continually talk with those partners as well about how they want that accessibility to work, and what we expect as a minimum, and how they can continue to improve their product using our automated data capture.
Okay, yeah, so that is quite interesting. But also the making of hardware. We know in the entrepreneurial world, it's hard to make hardware.
And expensive.
And expensive, yes, you're quite right there. And you've worked with an industrial designer as well. How have you got to the point that the tag looks like it does with the delivery, the system to get it on the ear as well? How's that gone?
It's been fantastic. We've got a Clandestine Design Group, who are a Brisbane-based group, and they have been excellent. A lot of talking, a lot of meetings, a lot of patience on their behalf, to bring us several options, and then we discuss through why they had that particular design idea, and we say why we do or don't think that will work. And they have really helped us workshop that through, and they have been excellent. And I think this is really important. They are the designers, but they're not the inventors, and they've never tried to be. But everyone's, in all our collaborations, everyone's really been able to stay in their strength, their position of strength, and support each other through it. Yeah. So a lot of conversation, a lot of redraws, a lot of really trying to think it through and drawing what it looks like from when we order it to when it's being used and how it's being used, and they've really understood the animal. So there's so much to think about with something like what we're doing. There's the positioning of all the electronics, then there's the positioning on an animal, then there's the user, the human user, there's industry acceptance. So we wanted it to look not too different. So we say we're an enhancer, not a disruptor. A lot of the entrepreneurial push is to be a disruptor. Sometimes that's awesome. And sometimes just taking the next step for people is also a really exciting entrepreneurial space to be in. So our tag also has an RFID in it, which is what the current system is. So current tagging and tracking systems for cattle are an RFID. So we have an RFID as well. So that's familiar, and that system works. But then we've put a digital overlay over that, which enhances and automates. So our design group understood where we were coming from in that space. So we look different, we feel a bit different, but we work in a very familiar way.
Yeah.
So that's been good.
Yeah, and that is really quite important, because you move too far away from what is acceptable, then you've got a huge education task around getting people to understand what it is and what it does and the benefits and the value.
That's right. So we've tried to learn from other successful manufactured and platform pieces, and one of the ones is the rise of the smartphone. So once upon a time, a flip phone really just was for phone calls, and if you really were patient, you could punch out a text. But incrementally that improved, and the uptake of something new was when it went from being BlackBerry buttons to a smooth smartphone was a big step for some people. That missing wearing the letters and numbers off the BlackBerry buttons, and now touching a slide screen. Now you'd never go back. But there was a giant leap in technology, but you still basically used it in a familiar way. But now, with iPhone 11, it looks similar to what the original iPhone did, but its capability is so much more. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the actual manufacture of the tag, where will that happen?
So our manufacturing partner is in Taiwan.
Okay.
And we looked around in Australia, but to be able to do the complexity of the electronics, needed to be done offshore. So we actually, with the help of TIQ, so I think really importantly, that's Trade and Investment Queensland, and also our other partners, just asking around who and where is a great place to get electronics done, and security of supply and that type of thing. We ended up doing a trip to Taiwan. So David went to Taiwan and went and visited some factories, and really saw the capability and the opportunity that was there. And Yamura is our manufacturing partner and helping us with the trials. And they, in fact, became an investor. So that's been a really exciting thing for us, because we're all in this together. But finding a manufacturer is not easy, and it's because it's expensive and because it nearly always has to happen offshore. There are elements we're looking for. Our more mechanical elements, such as our applicator, to be done here in Australia, but that complexity of electronics that we've got just had to be done offshore. And they've been great, and they've helped us. They have design engineers as well that work with our industrial designers, and everyone works together to make this dream come true for us, which is just, I think it's something that is one of the most exciting parts once you get through all the hard work, is then seeing the iterative improvements and getting closer and closer to commercialization.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you ever think that one day you would be an entrepreneur?
It's a good question. I think I always wanted to do something that was our own business. Yeah. I didn't really know what that would be.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether that would be a Jim's Mowing franchise or a, but I'm really excited that it is something that we've come up with together, that we've been able to work through together. I think it's something that not everyone gets a chance to do. And we've really been able to work together and support each other to get to where we are now. And we're bringing employees in that are, you know, I guess it's what you always want. You want people who are really smart and really capable around you. And we've been so fortunate with, we keep a tight team. It's only a small team. We contract out a lot of and outsource some of our work. That way we are able to keep a control on the costs, because you can ask for itemized invoicing and Gantt charts that show you where everyone's up to and how it's all going, and it's easy to manage that way. But it's exciting, and I think it's been one of the few times where not having to follow all the rules has been okay. So that's been nice as well. Not break any important rules, but probably question rules is more to it. So why is it always done this way?
Yeah.
Is it through habit? Is it through familiarity? Do you think if we did this slightly differently, it would improve your operations, your productivity, your business model? And that's been fun as well.
Yeah, there was an interesting piece recently that I was reading, which was about questions. It's not necessarily the answer that we always need to get right. It's asking the right questions, because that's the piece that will continue to move us along, particularly when we're in the entrepreneurial world. It's like,
yeah, I think so. And I guess perhaps tapping back to my teacher world, I loved those kids that just asked a million questions, and the ones who kind of walked the line, because they made me a better teacher.
Yeah.
And they made the class a more dynamic environment, and they made the learning a whole lot more fun, because it was my job to be engaging and make learning something worth doing. So that's probably a transferable skill, I guess, or transferable experience. Asking questions and being comfortable with people asking us questions about our business as well, our model, our technology, our partners. If people are asking a question, then they're not ignoring you. Mm-hmm. So, and if people are asking a question and wanting to know more, then obviously we're on the right track. We're worth asking the question of. So it was great feedback.
Yeah.
And I think questions should never be scary. The questions we ask of other people also. So we've been lucky too, the people we've been with. You know, if we ask a question, our partners, they may go, no one's ever asked that before. And we said, well, great. That's what we're here for. So I think collective eye roll all round, but we've been able to do something amazing through questions.
Yes. And so where are you at with the business? Because clearly you were originally planning to launch in April, and that's been pushed back with COVID-19. So what are you up to at the moment with the business while the world slows down a little?
Yeah, so our commercial release will now be next year. Yep. Our trials, we're hoping to be able to kickstart those again at the end of this year, if not very early next year. And so by mid-year, we'll be up and going. But as we speak now, there's a workshop happening via Microsoft Teams meeting in the other room around our platform development and our customer management system, and all of that back end is being built out now, the commercial back end and how the e-commerce and everything will work. So that's great. All of that will be workshopped through. It's amazing what we used to do in a boardroom with post-it notes and things now happen on Miro boards and Teams meetings, and it's fantastic. I'm actually really excited because we have a global business. So the fact that we can engage with international providers, we're learning a lot when it's time for us to educate globally. We might not always have to jump on a plane to do that. The technology exists.
Yeah.
So that's been an exciting part of COVID as well, learning so many new things. I've always been able to use the computer, but you only use the services you require. So when you're put into a position of having to learn new things and you just find it, go, wow, all of this has been here for years and we just never used it. Those early mover entrepreneurs who developed all of these platforms, now's their moment. So everyone has their moment.
Yeah, and I think we all wish that we had some shares in Zoom as well.
Oh, absolutely. But it's been great. It's been a good opportunity. You ask where we're at. So we're taking care of our international accreditation responsibilities, making sure we have all our ISO and all that important, how the documents work, how our company works, making sure we have all those ducks in a row so that when we can push the button post-COVID on the final part of our trials and then commercializing, we've had this moment to really focus on getting that done.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Terrible as it is, there are some upsides, as we were saying earlier, around this ability to pause and take stock and do the things. In my case, it's clean out my shed, deal with the back garden, but do those things that otherwise may not have been dealt with in the same way.
And they also bring to the front of your mind, things which you may not have had to consider.
Yeah.
So whoever would have thought that Australians would sign up to the COVID app, for example, where you're tracked and who you come in contact with is recorded. And we do that for the collective good. Yep. So the Ceres Tag story in some ways is reflective of that, in that the capture of data, the security of data, the sharing, what's appropriate data to share, that conversation is at the front of people's minds now. There is important data to share, and it doesn't have to be data that is personal and private, but as a collective, has a collective value. Yeah. So all of those conversations can be from every event. The bushfires was another event for us. Which animals, there is an animal database for livestock, but it's very manual. If you can't get to those animals, you don't know what numbers are where.
Yeah.
Until you can track those animals down. The floods in North Queensland.
That's right. Yeah.
Only last year. Can you believe what a couple of years we've had?
Absolutely.
But biosecurity, traceability, welfare, and also producer welfare. So we are obviously concerned with animal welfare, but the worry for producers of where their animals are, how are they? Are they where they should be? If they're not, how do I plan to get them back? All of that with a GPS and accelerometer data, we can help alleviate some of those fears. I have to move off farm because of a fire or a flood, but can I still see that everything's okay there? Yeah. So I think the social benefit to our producers has a value as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you yourself, what are some of the key things that you've either learnt about yourself or had to learn on this entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I had to learn social media. That was a big thing for me. For a long time in teaching, you were discouraged to have anything to do with social media. So when all of that first came out, it was like, oh, I'm not going to have anything to do with that. I want people to be able to track down my profile online. So all of that, of course, has changed, which seems very basic to a lot of people. But for me, that was a real mindset shift. And I was also really comfortable being the cheer squad and the person who was filled in all the gaps, but didn't necessarily need anyone to know who I was. I was quite comfortable with that. So hence today, when you asked me, I went, well, I've really got to start embracing that because there is great benefit. As people say, you can't be what you don't see.
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly amazing about us. We probably have a underdeveloped fear of risk. That's probably our biggest thing. And willing to give things a go. And I think in Australia, there's we have such a great safety net in this country because of the amazing country that it is. There's no reason not to give something a go. Yeah. And it's exciting. So I guess I didn't realize I was quite as comfortable with risk as I am. So when we started this, we had 3 kids at school and, you know, all the things that normal everyday people worry is a reason not to do things, bills to pay and all of those things. But the thrill of the adventure. So I'm not someone who needs to paraglide or cave dive or any of those things, but I guess this has been my version of that. Just see what happens.
Yeah. And it's that, you know, there's a view out there that entrepreneurs are highly highly willing to take on risk and to walk off into the unknown, jump off cliffs and whatever. But I don't think that's the case. There is a lot of planning, there's a lot of organising, there's a lot of thinking through it. I mean, you said yourself, you know, you didn't just launch off on the first idea. You thought about a range of different ideas. But the piece that keeps you going is I'm creating something new. I'm creating something of value. I'm creating social value from what we're building here.
Sure. Yeah. So I think calculated risk, perhaps.
Yeah.
And surrounding ourselves with these really amazing people who share our vision, who see what it is we're trying to achieve and agree with us. So that's validation as well, and it's exciting. Each step through of barrier that we faced, it's exciting. So everyone has their founder moments where it's difficult and you think, oh my goodness, are we going to make it? And that bank balance is looking terrifyingly low, and then something comes along. The thing is to keep looking for the next opportunity to grow the business and stay funded. I think probably our mantra, stay funded, stay funded, stay funded. And try to maintain control for as long as you can. So we have shareholders, but we hunt down those grants that don't require equity so that we can keep shares available for shareholders who want to come on the journey with us. And that's also really exciting because we keep wanting to do well for those people that trusted us with money and bought into our company. So that keeps you going as well.
Yeah. And just to finish off, would you have some advice for our students, those potentially nascent entrepreneurs who are out there thinking, you know, about what they can do in the world? What would you say to them about the entrepreneurial journey?
Have as many ideas as you can, but only execute the ones that are actually going to benefit someone. Yeah. So a really cool idea and a really cool piece of tech, if it doesn't have a genuine purpose, so don't be running around with a solution looking for a problem, I guess. Shelve that solution and wait for the problem. Or maybe that problem's been solved, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have another idea. Yeah. Or your solution may be the right one, but cool tech or a cool idea is not enough. It has to benefit someone somehow. And think about things from a global scale. So don't think small, think big. Don't be scared of thinking big. It's actually easier to think big in a lot of ways, because you put boundaries around yourself when you think small. So think big and plan big. So make your business plan big. Build your org chart with all the people you're going to need. You're not going to employ everyone at once. What are the most important? Who are the most important? So we had a governance board and everything really early on, so that we made sure that we were doing everything correctly. We had great advisors around our tax and ASIC responsibilities and all of those things. All of that matters. So as much as we just want to focus on the tag and our platform and our end users, we have to have an eye on ASIC rules. We have to have an eye on tax rules. We have to have an eye on international regulation, because we thought big from the start. So we look at international regulation. All of those things matter, but stay funded is the most important thing, because if you run out of, staying funded gives you the opportunity to keep growing your idea.
Yeah.
So that matters. Talking about the money. So that was probably something I had to learn to feel more comfortable about. You have to be okay to say, actually, we're going to need money for that. No, you can't have that for free. You're going to need to buy that from us. You want to trial it? Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to buy it to trial it. We have a trial pack. This is what it looks like. You're allowed to say, this is what the deal is. And don't be afraid of someone saying, well, I don't like your deal. Well, that's actually okay. They may not be the right person for you and for your business. So, but don't be upset, because they may come back later and be exactly the right person at a different time, but they just weren't then. So, and have a go-to-market plan, and also your exit strategy. So one of the things that investors especially don't want to feel like they'll be trapped as having been invested. So if your strategy is to be acquired, then you're going to need to factor that into how you build your business. If your strategy is to eventually be listed, then you should factor that into your business plan. So it seems weird that right at the beginning you want to be thinking about the end, but that all matters for who will be interested in helping you along the way. And is also good for you, because eventually you may want to do more than one idea.
That's all fantastic advice. I think it's really quite pertinent. We do see some who sort of set off down a path, and they're not aware of where they're heading to, and therefore they're not across the parts that are necessary, that they need to have organised before they could potentially get to an end.
Sure, and also don't be afraid to pivot. So Ceres Tag is known as Ceres Tag because we originally thought we were making a tag, but it's actually a platform. It's still Ceres Tag, but it's a whole. It's grown to be much bigger and much better than our original idea. The business model has been adapted, but hasn't been. It was the right idea. Just our execution is adjusting, but our end game is the same. And we also are not afraid to talk to people about what we're doing. So I think for a long time, people used to keep their idea a secret, but you can't grow anything if it doesn't have sunlight and air. And look, there's a risk that someone will take your idea, but it's a fairly small one in the end. And if they do, if you're being dynamic and looking and forward thinking all the time, then your idea you had on 2 years ago will be so much further developed and so much further along. The idea they took off you 2 years ago will bear a passing resemblance to where it is now. And they'll have to go and find all the learnings that you went through.
Yeah.
So it's a risk, but for the most part, you'll find people are either, that was my idea from years ago. I thought about doing that, but did you do anything about it? Or they'll, someone said to me once, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. So that's probably fair in entrepreneurialism as well. A lot of people have a lot of ideas who have never been game to try their own.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Oh, look, Melita, that's been fantastic. I think lots of good advice there and a really interesting journey as well. And we're certainly looking forward to seeing how the tag progresses or how the platform progresses. You know, it would be fantastic to see it on all Australian livestock as they move around the country and have that information. Yes.
The world, Rowena. Well, certainly keep an eye on all our socials because we are certainly keeping everyone as informed as we can about how we're going and where our development's heading, and it's very exciting times.
Yeah. Well, Melita, thank you very much for this conversation. It's always really heartwarming, but exciting to talk to our alumni who are out there being very entrepreneurial in the world. And there'll be more conversations that I'll have with others as well. But we wish you all the very best with the venture. And as I say, look forward to following your progress. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rowena.
Thank you. All right. We've got the end of that.
I hope that was okay.
It was fantastic.
I try not to get too carried away and talk too much.
No, no, look, that's great and really good. That really was really good advice at the end. You know, there are so many people out there who have a solution, but it's like, what's the problem? You know?
Yeah, and they complain about a lack of adoption, but I've always said, you know, who would ever, I've never been to a workshop teaching me why I need an iPhone. Never. But it's a fantastic, or a Samsung, I shouldn't be brand specific, but you know, everyone uses them now.
Yeah.
Very few people don't. But I've never seen a convention on how to get the best out of. You might drop in and do a genius bar moment, but a lot of these products, they've just become important to how we do things, and you don't need to be, you know, they've never had a problem with adoption because they've been worth adopting.
Yeah, that's right. You say that, and I'm thinking about one thing that I've seen just recently as part, you know, the response to COVID-19. There's a venture that's come out of San Francisco called Goat to Meeting, where a animal sanctuary will bring their goat to your Zoom meeting. So it's like, oh my God.
And yet, you know what? People will be doing it. Because I know my daughters who are up at the farm were saying, oh my God, we could do, you know, animal to meeting. We could do tractor to meeting. We could do. So it is interesting. But I think it's interesting. One of the things COVID's brought out is that people really want to connect with people.
Yeah.
And that's in a whole lot of supply lines. And also when people are scared what their base response is, you know, the things that they panic bought and everyone thought, well, it's fine, I'll just get in the caravan and head bush, you know, like, but no one wants to live there. Service provision for regional and remote Australia is so bad that we actually couldn't let people do that. And I'm waiting for that conversation to hit the books as well. Why could we not let people go where they wanted? And pure and simple, the service provision is not there. So that's a real issue. Yeah. That hopefully will come to the front with some of this COVID conversation that's happening in what will Australia look like post-COVID. Yeah. So, yeah. Absolutely. And people do want silliness at work. That's one silly hat day and in outfits and you know, still want to do funny things when they're scared. So yeah, that's why people muck up in class, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, I will let you get on with the last bit of your day. But thank you very much. I really do appreciate the time.